Good afternoon and welcome back. We are so happy that you could come and attend our back to school SIRAS Updates training. We have a wonderful friend today, Michael Brown, here to talk to us about some updates that have occurred over the course of the summer. We hope you are all doing well and settling back into the new norm of back to school. We just want to thank you all for your tireless, I should say tireless, your amazing efforts and all that you do to get the school year off to a positive start. My name is Jennifer Connolly. I'm the coordinator for SELPA, and I have here with me Michael Brown from SIRAS. Michael is going to share with us some updates. For all of you, if you don't mind putting questions in the chat, Michael will refer to your questions throughout the training. And so please feel free to put those questions in the chat. Please keep muted unless Michael needs a little bit more clarification. He will ask that of the question that maybe is in that chat. We are recording today, so please be mindful of that. Please omit student names. And just try to keep real general when asking questions to Michael. So Michael, again, thank you for your support. We're so grateful to have you here today, and I will let you take it on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. So this is kind of going to be a refresher and some new kind of features as we go along. I'll show you those new features that we have in SIRAS. But there's a lot of things that I want to go over that I get a lot of questions on that I just kind of write down within your SELPA that I get questions on. So hopefully you guys will be able to pass some of this information on and learn from it for yourselves as well. So first thing off is to log in. It's the same thing, first name and your last name. I just wanted to show you here. I made up a fake user because I created all these fake students in the system. So I just want to remind you guys, none of the data that you're going to see is real. You'll see some of my silly names that I came up with too for the students. So, but I'm going to go ahead and log into special ed. I'm logging in as a general user. We have those two types of users. General users, they're assigned to student records. So they only see the students they're assigned to. And then admin users, they are either at a district level or at a school level. They see every student in either the district or every student in a particular school or schools. So I'm logged in as a general user. I have 6 students assigned to me. This is where you see all of your students here as a general user. And you'll have a bigger list of admin. If you're admin user, you'll have maybe like 100, 200, 300, depending on how big your district or school is. So when I bring up this list, the first thing I want to show you, a lot of people don't understand is, as a general user, when I click on my list, I see my students that have a white background and a yellow background. This is what a general user sees. So the ones with the white background are students that are actively enrolled in special ed. The ones that have a yellow background, they're pending. So usually they're the ones that just transferred in from a different district, and you have to make sure that they're enrolled in your district before you make them active, or they're brand new students that are looking to have an initial evaluation done so they can determine eligibility. Usually when admins log in, they only see their active students, they don't see inactive students. So that number will be a little different from you because you guys are not seeing inactive students or pending students. To change that, there's actually right here, when you click on that choose student list, you can change and look at them all. And you'll see now that I have 8 records instead of my 6 because I added these 2 that have gray in here. So with the gray background, those are your students that are inactive. All right, they're no longer in special ed. Maybe they're no longer at your district. They're no longer receiving services at your district. They moved on to somewhere else and they just haven't transferred out yet. Maybe where they went to a district that does not use SIRAS. So then that student will stay there in your district as inactive, and you only be able to see them unless you choose all, or if you just want to see your inactive students. Okay, so those students will always be there unless they go to another district. Okay, so you guys can go to this little status here and change your view. If you're an admin user, or I guess if you're a general user, if you go to tools, mine says my account, but if you're an admin user, it says manage users. You can go into your account right here. It defaults to your account. You have this edit preferences. And there's a way to see your choose student list right here, the default, if you want to see active pending or active only. So we've added this in there to where if you're an admin, you default to only your active students. If you want to change that and see both, you can go to this tools, manage users, or my account if you're a general user, and change that status here to active pending or active only, whatever view that you want to see. And what that refers to again are these students here, whether you want to see the active pending, the ones in the white background and the yellow, or just your active, and it'll take away all your pending students. No matter which one that you have, so I only see my active and pending. I can always, no matter what, even if they're not on my list, so I can always see only have 6 students, I can always search for a student if I know their name or their number, and I can always find my inactive students, all right, even if you don't have them up there. So you can always search for the student name. All right. Going back home to the home page here, when you log in, when you search for a student, it puts you in a found set. Just a quick reminder, I've actually had 3 calls today. I don't believe they're from Santa Barbara, I don't remember. But to get all of your students back out of the found set, you click on this reset search here or reset search here, and it'll bring back all your students on your caseload. That's probably one of the biggest questions we have when people call. And like I said, I had 3 calls just on that this morning. So that's kind of a big one as well. And just a reminder down. Was I on mute? For how long? Just a little bit? Okay. I was like, oh no, I gotta start all over again.
You're fine, sorry. Sorry, Michael.
Okay. So just a reminder going down here, on the live version of SIRAS, make sure that you guys go to our newsletter. That is going to show you all of the new, it's not on the training, it's on the live version, but that's going to show you all of the new information. This is the only way we can communicate you guys as SIRAS as a company, is to put the new information here. It's great that you guys have updates and stuff and trainings and stuff to show you guys, but usually we have pretty good documentation. But if you have any questions, feel free to call me if you have any questions on that. But there is a newsletter that comes out every month. So just make sure you guys look at that there. Down below, if you have a huge caseload, I don't really have a huge caseload. I only have 6 students that are active and pending. But it'll give you information. SIRAS warns you 30 days in advance of an IEP and 75 days in advance of an evaluation. And as an admin, you can actually filter through those students down here if you want to see students that have upcoming IEPs, rather than looking at your entire district or entire school. You guys can look at those students and filter those out through this area here. So that's a good way for, if you're an admin user, to look at your district or school as a whole and see what's upcoming and to make sure you have compliance with those upcoming IEPs. For a general user, I don't have any students with upcoming IEPs right now, so that means there's nobody with an IEP that's coming up within 30 days or an eval for 60 days. But if I wanted to see those students, I can filter out those students as well by coming down here. And that way I know what students I need to pay more attention to, rather than just going to my list and picking a student that, you know, I can just choose from. All right, so I am going to go ahead. We're going to go to a student. I'm going to choose my Kevin Bacon student. If you guys notice, these aren't real names, so so Kevin Bacon. I'm a huge fan. If you guys don't know Footloose, that's all right. So when you go to a student and you click on their name, a general user goes to the IEP manager. If you're an admin, you go to what we call the MIS summary page. And so this is the page that gets sent to the state. This is all the information that gets sent to the state, to CalPads. When you guys are reporting to CalPads, this is the information that goes. The way that general user changes this information, updates the dates, updates the services, is they go through the IEP process. Okay, so for a general user, for most of the time, you should not be changing the MIS summary page to update things unless you really have to. But you should be doing it through an IEP, whether it be an annual, triennial, or an amendment. So I'm going to go ahead here and click on create new meeting. We have the 3 statuses in SIRAS. We have active, and I told you we're talking about active, pending, and inactive. So this student right now is actively receiving services. So if I try to do an initial evaluation for this student, SIRAS is not going to allow you to. All right, so it's saying the student already has an initial evaluation date. They're already in special ed. They've already been determined eligible. So there's no way that SIRAS will let you do an initial on this student. So if you run across that issue and you think, hey, it's supposed to be inactive, make sure you change this back, because maybe somebody changed it thinking they needed to do something. And I'm going to show you later on how to do a second initial for a student. I just want to go over a little bit with the meetings. We have an annual review. When you guys click on these meetings, it gives you information on what they are. You guys can always read this to see what an annual, what we consider what an annual is. But basically, you guys know annual is every year. Triennial reevaluation. There's 2 different, these are actually 2 different meetings. There's a triennial that happens every 3 years, and a reevaluation that can actually happen at any time. A parent can request anything like that, or if you need to exit a student, you don't have to wait for the triennial to be due. You can exit the student at any time through a reevaluation. And just a reminder, to do an exit, if you're ever going to exit a student from special ed and return them to gen ed, you need to hold a reevaluation. It has to be a reevaluation. You cannot exit a student through any other meeting. Next, we have the addendum amendment. I'm going to go ahead and create this one real quick. I know this is a little bit of a refresher, but I just want to show you guys. You guys should know how to create meetings already, and should know, how to fill out forms and go through the process. So I'm going to go ahead and just remind you of the difference between an addendum and an amendment. So if you guys think of the IEP is actually a legal contract that the district and the IEP team has with the parent and the student. So it's a legal contract. It's like a contract you sign with a landlord if you have an apartment, right? You sign that contract for a year for your apartment. This is kind of the same thing. You're signing a contract saying this is what you're going to provide for the next year and during the annual, initial, or triennial. If there are any changes to that contract, okay, any changes at all to that contract, it must be noted in an addendum or an amendment, especially if assuming the parent does not know about what changes are being made. Okay, if you forget something to put on the IEP that you've already discussed with the parent, that's different than if this is something new that's going to be changed to a contract. It needs to be done in an amendment. Okay. There is a difference between an addendum and amendment. And what I want to kind of put it in a way as an addendum, you're adding something. So you're adding you're adding minutes to a service. You're adding a goal, or you're doing something. I mean, I guess you can take away a goal or take away minutes as well, but addendum you're adding is how I think of it. You need to have a meeting with the parent. That's something you need to discuss with the parent. It's that important to where you have to hold a meeting. So it's something that is changing in the IEP itself. So when you do an amendment, it says administrative amendment up here, approval required. That approval required is just making sure that your admin knows about this, your SIRAS admin at the district or school knows about the administrative amendment and agrees that it should be in an amendment. Because when you check this, what that does is it takes away the IEP date. So you actually don't have to have a meeting with the parent for an amendment. Let's say the parent calls and says, hey, you spelled my name wrong on the annual. I want that changed. Well, it is a very minor change. You should not really at least I think you should not really reactivate the annual and make that change because it's already been finalized. The parent already signed. So any change to the contract should be done through an addendum or amendment. So an amendment is more like a clerical error. You misspelled a name, you got a wrong date, you need to fix something that's clerical. That's administrative amendment. You don't really need to have a meeting with the parent to discuss, hey, this is how we spell my name. Let's meet for 30, 45 minutes and discuss my name. That's not, you don't need to have a meeting for that. So that's why we have that administrative amendment there. All right. So that's that there. And then a reminder to delete an IEP. If you ever want to delete it, you have to make sure, if I have a form that I've opened and I've just saved it and I didn't actually do anything to it, if I try to delete the meeting, it is going to tell me the meeting cannot be deleted while there's submitted forms. So you have to go through the pre-meeting forms, the basic IEP forms, all the different tabs to make sure you do not have one of these forms that have been saved. Before you can delete a meeting, you have to delete the form, and then you have to delete the meeting. And so now it'll let me delete. The reason being is that we want to make sure you guys do this on purpose and delete a meeting on purpose. And the reason why we know that is because we've had a ton of people before we did this, people would just delete a meeting, they'd have all the forms saved, and they click delete and it says, are you sure? And they say, okay. And then everything gets deleted and they didn't mean to, and there's no way to recover it. So when you have them go through and delete every single form, and then they say, hey, Cyrus deleted my meeting, you can go to the student history and you guys can look at this. Anyone can look at this here, but it'll show you here. See how it says the form data was deleted. I deleted the notice of meeting and it went to blank. And then I deleted the actual addendum amendment. So Cyrus tracks everything that goes on in the system. So when somebody deletes a meeting, it'll show they deleted the present levels, they deleted the goals, they deleted the statewide assessments, they deleted the instructional accommodations. Then they had to delete the meeting. That's more or less on purpose rather than by accident when you have to delete all those forms. So that's why we make you go through that process to kind of make people think, I'm deleting all this stuff. Am I sure I want to do it before they delete the meeting? And like I said, Cyrus tracks all this information and timestamps all that. And then anybody has access to this. If you go to student info, student history, it tells you a lot more information. It tells you when the record was created, all the archived records. It tells you all the archived services that the student had, the meeting history. So you can actually click on any of these links and it'll take you to that meeting. You can view the forms, everything, and then it has that change log as well. All right. I use this when, and you guys can use this when you, sometimes you'll go to the MI summary page as an admin, you'll delete a date and think it's supposed to be another date. And you're like, oops, I did it on the wrong student. I was supposed to be on another student. And then you're like, oh man, I forgot what date was in there before. It tracks that. So all you have to do is go to the student history and see what the date was and what you changed it to, and just put it back to what it was. And so that's how I help people as well figure out what they've done, and I kind of help them backtrack through what they've done so they can undo some things. that they didn't mean to do. All right. So I'm going to go back to the student's IEP manager. I'm going to create a new meeting here. We went over addendum amendment, a review 30-day. This is a big one that I want to go over because I still get a ton of calls and people not really understanding what a review 30-day is. A review 30-day, when you open it, it is an annual review. Okay, a review 30-day is an annual review. When you open it, it says review 30-day. And if you notice the secondary purpose, automatically put annual review. Okay, so this meeting, when a student comes in from another SILPA, basically what it's saying is you have 30 days to establish a new annual for this student when they come into your SILPA. Okay, it's from out of SILPA. It's not from out of district, and it's not from another school. This student, a review 30 days for a student coming from out of SILPA. Okay, and it's an annual. And the only difference between a review 30-day and an annual is one form. In the pre-meeting forms, we have this interim placement. So what the interim placement is basically, it's like a tiny contract. All right, the student comes from out of SILPA, you go to the pre-meeting forms, you fill out the interim placement. The interim placement is basically saying within those 30 days, you know, you have to continue services those 30 days. You can't just not provide services until you have that new annual. So you have 30 days to get the new annual, but within those 30 days, these are the services that you're going to be able to provide. All right. You don't need a parent signature. You don't need them to consent to this. This is just like a good faith. The student's coming from out of SILPA, they have an IEP. We're going to continue these services until we establish this new IEP. Okay. And that is basically the only difference between an annual and a review 30-day is when you click review 30-day, it gives this interim placement form in the pre-meeting. And then you would fill out the notice of meeting as well. And then you go to the basic IEP forms and you can see they're all required. These are the same required forms that are in an annual. Okay, so the meeting date that you choose, so if I choose today, this student's IEP, the next IEP is not going to be due until next year on the same day. So it's going to change the next IEP date to next year. All right. Now, I just want to just remember that a review 30-day is an annual, because now I'm going to totally flip it around. We do have this little checkbox that says adopt existing out of SILPA IEP. And this is where people get confused. When you open up a review 30-day from a student coming from out of SILPA, it defaults to an annual, okay? It changes the date to the next year. Now, students coming, let's say a student's coming from out of SILPA and they are coming from a SILPA and you're looking at the IEP and you're like, wow, this is a great IEP. This is amazing. I don't really want to do another IEP. They just did this annual 2 months ago, right? And if you consider an IEP a contract, a year contract, if they did the IEP 2 months ago at another SILPA, there's still 10 months left on that contract. So if they just did that IEP, you still have 10 months with that contract. If you like that contract, if you like that IEP and everything's good, you can adopt that out of SILPA IEP. When you adopt, you're adopting the present levels, you're adopting the eligibility, you're adopting the statewide assessments, you're adopting instructional accommodations, you're adopting the goals, you're adopting the services, you're adopting everything about that IEP. So if you notice, all these forms became optional now, okay? Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna fill out the demographic page because you need your district on that now. You need to put your district, their new address, everything like that. You have the course of study certificate. I think that's required because of the student's age. And then you have the meeting participation. But what you're going to do is take the demographics, take that out of SILPA IEP, and then the consent form, and you're saying this is that student's new IEP. Okay. but there's only 10 months left in that contract. Now this becomes an addendum. Okay, so you're not changing the IEP date. Whatever the student came in with, all right, so if that student came with the IEP that was done 2 months ago, when you're doing this IEP today, the next IEP is not due in a year. It's actually due 10 months from now, because the student came in with the 2-month-old IEP. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody's good, okay. So there's 2 kind of meetings. This is an annual, it changes the date. This is an addendum. Now, just because a student comes from out of SELPA and with an IEP, you can still make minor changes to the IEP. All right, you can still make minor changes. You can say, okay, I want to add some instructional accommodations to the student. You may want to add some minutes to their services or something like that. I don't know, but you can open up any one of these optional forms. Maybe you need to fill out the statewide assessments because they haven't done it yet in the previous IEP. So the statewide assessments could be part of your amendment. So you just open up the statewide assessment form, fill it out, and you're good to go. All right, so you can open up and fill out any one of these optional forms to make your amendment. All right. So hopefully that was clear.
Hey, Michael, can I ask a question? This is
Yeah.
McKenna from Santa Maria. I'm new. I apologize. I'm still trying to figure this out.
No worries.
So I appreciate the addendum part, and I think that might be a better way to go with the interim, but I am concerned that when a student comes in on an interim, if we're saying the new start date is, say, the original date was February for the annual, we're saying the new start date because the interim is in September, that cuts off the timeline. And we're also creating an IEP within 30 days where we may or may not know the student. So from a legal standpoint, it's typically that year. So I'm just curious why the system would be set up without having that overriding annual date input into the system.
Maybe I'm not quite understanding.
So typically, you have an initial, say it's in February, and then every year you review the annual date, and then every 3 years, the triennial. And I have another question leading into this too.
Yeah.
So if we're coming in, the student comes at an interim in September and the system's resetting that annual date into September, that puts us in that 6-month range. So the 2 months and the 10 months makes sense on the addendum. But if we're really restarting the IEP on an interim, that shifts the annual date. So I'm just curious why it does that. It just doesn't seem to align with kind of the legality of the yearly assessment to monitor progress on goals, because they wouldn't have enough data to really monitor progress on an interim.
I'm not quite sure what you're meaning by the interim. The interim is for a review 30-day for a student coming from out of SELPA.
Right.
The interim is only this interim is only like a 30-day contract. It's basically saying these are the only services we're providing for the next 30 days. And then you're filling out the annual here.
Right. Maybe I misunderstand, but when you fill out the annual in that at the end of that 30 days, that's resetting an annual date from February to September. That's not typically how that, exactly. How is that legal? They're cutting the timeline by calling the interim a new annual. Yeah, thanks, Armando. That's more clear. I'm not being clear. So the system is doing something that's not aligning necessarily with the legality of why we would provide an annual or a try every 3 years on that specific date. So legally, that initial date should be February and not shifted over to September.
I'm thinking then, Kristen, maybe you could adopt the existing IEP, make the changes, but keep the date, the February date.
That's what I'm thinking would be the best way to go about that.
Yeah, you would keep the February date, and then you would make adjustments if you needed to add more services or more accommodations, to model the program that you have to that interim. Then that's what you would do, and then that would keep that example of that February annual date sacred to that IEP.
I agree. I was just trying to figure out why we would not do it that way. Okay. Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay. Is that okay? I mean, maybe I'm just I'm not understanding, but I'll move on. Yeah, you have the choice of choosing adopt out of SELPA or not. The only thing you want to be careful of is if you're adopting an out of SELPA IEP, if that IEP is going to be due in 2 months, you probably don't want to adopt it. You probably just want to create an entire new annual. So yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm going to show you this here. So to delete the IEP again, the only one that can delete it is the person that actually created it, or if you're an admin user. But if you don't want to delete it, let's say you accidentally made this a review 30-day and it's not supposed to be a review 30-day. The student's coming from out of district, not out of SELPA, and you're like, oops, I didn't mean to do a review 30-day. The annual is actually due, but say you've already filled out all this information. You can actually click on edit, and then you can change the meeting type. And when you change the meeting type, you won't lose any of the data down here. Everything that you filled out will be saved. It's just going to change this to an annual rather than a review 30-day. All right. All right, the next one I'm going to go over. Yes.
Michael, there's a quick question. What's the right way to address adding the goals to SIRAS if you accept the IEP?
If you accept the out of SELPA?
Correct.
So, okay, if you have a review 30-day and you're actually adopt the out of SELPA IEP, if the IEP is coming from a place that uses SIRAS, these goals will be in there already. So those goals will be there. They're in our system. And so if you notice these 3 goals here, these are the goals that are in the current goals tab. Okay. If you change it to an annual, if you notice there's no goals because you need to create new goals for that annual. But if the student is not in, if you adopt the out of SELPA IEP and the student didn't come from a SELPA that uses SIRAS, then my suggestion would be is to, if you have an electronic copy of the goals, you can copy and paste the goals into the form, or you can go, you can either do it on the form itself, or you can go to the goals developer and go to the current goals, and then you can create, I got this little thing down here, I need to move it. Okay. You can create a new blank goal, and then you can create the goals and paste them in here, or type them, or however you have it. Okay. The reason why you do that is if the student's coming from out of SELPA that doesn't use SIRAS, you'd want the current goals in there because that would enable you to do our progress reports in the system. All right. So the next one I'm going to go, we have the manifestation determination. In this, if you go to an annual, if the manifestation determination falls within an annual, you don't have to open up a totally different meeting to include that manifestation determination. If it aligns with the annual, there is an optional form in the annual for manifestation determination. There's also one in the triennial and in the other meetings as well. So you don't have to open a meeting on top of an annual just to do a manifestation, as long as it aligns with it. But if it's a manifestation determination on its own, and there's no annual coming up or anything like that, you can change to a manifestation determination. What that does, it just makes the manifestation determination required, and it forces you to do that form. This student is in the 12th grade that I chose. So this one's showing an exit summary. The only time that an exit summary will show is if the student's in 12th grade. The exit summary is basically just kind of like a contract. It's a kind of an informal type of meeting. It's just with possibly maybe just the teacher and the student, or whoever. If the parents want to be involved, they can be involved. But it's an informal meeting. You don't use it to exit the student from special ed. This is just kind of like something they could take on when the student's graduating. And so you can fill that out. If you guys are in high school, at the high school level, you'll have that exit summary here. The next meeting is another review. Another review is basically like an amendment or an addendum. You would open another review, maybe if the parent just wants to discuss progress. Maybe there's not a change going to happen in the IEP. Maybe there is, you don't know. But let's just say the parent wants to say, hey, I want to discuss my student's progress. You can put in the secondary purpose as review progress. You open up the demographic form and you have to fill out the meeting participation and the consent form. And then what you do is you just probably take meeting notes. If nothing changes in the IEP, you don't have to open up any other form. If nothing changes in the IEP, then this is just a record of the meeting that you guys held. It won't be sent to CalPads if there's no changes. If there is a change, however, you can open up any form that you want and say, okay, we discussed progress, maybe they're not doing too well, and you guys decide to give the student more minutes. You can open up the special education related services form and add minutes to a service or something like that. You don't have to change the meeting type at all. If there's a change in any of the services or CalPad information, it will be sent to the state. So that's kind of like what the other review is. It's kind of like it's not going to change the annual date. It works like an amendment, but if there's no real changes, then it won't be reported to CalPads. You can also use it as a transition. We're going to be going over transitions, I think, in January. If the transition plan to, like, say, elementary to junior high or junior high to high school, you can use it as a transition plan if it doesn't align with the annual or triennial. There's also ones for behavior. A big one is an additional assessment. You can use this, say that you just had a triennial with the student, like maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and the speech pathologist, and I'm sorry, I always pick on the speech pathologist. Let's say the speech pathologist comes in and says, hey, I want to evaluate the student for speech services. Technically, you guys would do a reevaluation and, you know, maybe put in the same information, but if it's just for speech services, OT or something like that, they can do another review additional assessment. But if say it's a speech only kid and you want to add services for like SAI or something like that, it does not go that other way. You actually have to have a reevaluation for that. Okay. And then again, one of the ones that confuses people on this is consider exiting. Let's just say that the parent comes to you and says, hey, I want my kid to be tested and exited from special ed. And you're like, well, no, I don't think that's a great idea. Let's have a meeting together and let's discuss it. This is just a record of that meeting that you're going to consider exiting the student. Once you actually make that decision on, hey, we're going to exit that kiddo, you cannot exit the student from another review. Once that discussion is over, you fill out the forms, you fill out the meeting notes and what you discussed in there. And then if you actually wanted to exit the student, you have to finalize this meeting and then open up a triennial reevaluation, because you need evaluation to return the student to gen ed. So this is just the discussion part. You need to finalize that discussion and open up the tri reeval. Okay, you cannot exit a student through another review. This is just the consideration. If you decide, no, the student's going to stay in special ed, then you just finalize the meeting and the student's still in special ed. There's nothing you need to do. Okay, it was just a record of that discussion. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this to an annual. Sometimes when you have this in the dropdown, people click on these and you're like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. If you highlight it and you delete it, you don't actually have to have that in there. Okay. And you can type in most of the dropdown fields as well. Once you type in there, if you click out, it'll save. All right. So you click in the box, you can type and then click out and it'll save. All right. So basically I opened up an annual for this student. The first thing you normally do is go to the pre-meeting forms. And if you notice here, remember when I opened up the interim placement form for that review 30-day? So this was a review 30-day and I changed it to an annual, but I had filled that out that interim placement form. If I don't want that interim placement form, I filled it out by accident because I thought it was a review 30-day. All I have to do is delete this. If you need the form and you want to keep the form, you don't have to delete it. It'll stay there. It'll be saved, but it'll say submitted, no longer applicable. The reason being is there is no interim placement form for an annual. So you can just delete that and it will go away. Once you delete it, it's gone. You can't get it back. So just make sure if you delete those, you actually want them deleted. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is put in the meeting date up in here at the top. And the place, if you notice here, we have virtual meeting. You can put in your conference link here to your Zoom or your Teams meeting, and you can put the password, and that'll give them a little link that anybody has access to. The student can click on and take you to that meeting. And then you put in the implementation date, automatically defaults to the day after. The reason being is maybe before COVID, I don't know what the percentage might be now, but normally most of the meetings were done after school, right? And so the parents would come in after school to meet with you, you'd complete the IEP meeting, and you would not implement that IEP until the next day when they came back to school. So that's why the implementation date defaults to the next day. If you have a Zoom meeting in the morning, you're going to implement that IEP, everything, the parent signs, everything's good to go. You can always change this date. This date is going to feed your service start dates. Okay, so whatever is in here is going to be the first day of your service start, the service start date. All right, so you open up your notice of meeting and it fills in all these dates here and the time, the virtual meeting, etc. You have the option to put in an end time if you want to. Sometimes you're on a limited schedule and you have to say, okay, this is going to end, you know, at 11 a.m. So you give the parent an ending date. You don't have to put that if you don't need to. And then you have the parent signature here. And you just basically, you open it up, fill out what needs to be filled out, and you click on this green arrow to save and return. If you notice, I missed one of these areas here. It gives me an orange form warning. You need to correct the orange form warnings. When you open up the form again, it'll actually highlight in yellow the areas that you're missing. So let's say we're going to go over the development of the revision of the IEP, review of progress, and that's it. And then we save and return. Now that has a green check mark and we're good to go. So to send out the notice of meeting to the parent electronically, this is what I'm going to go over. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but this managed link only shows up once you open and save the form. So to send it electronically to the parent or to anyone, you click on this manage links and it opens up this box here. All right. And so you have a choice to send it to a parent, gen ed teacher, or other participant. If you're sending it to the parent, you want to make sure you click on parent, because that's going to give them access to their signature box. If you put as other participant or gen ed teacher and send it to the parent, they're not going to be able to sign that box. Okay. It'll automatically put the information for the student, for the parent's name and the email that it's going to be sent to, if it's in our system. Then you just click on create new link. And then SIRAS will actually create a message for you to send to the parent. You can actually click on enter and you can edit this any way you would like. You can customize it, anything you want to do, you can type into this message. You just want to make sure that you keep this link here. Okay. If you notice, it gives them also a video tutorial on how to sign. You can actually send this form in Spanish. So if you click Spanish right here, if you notice now in this link, it has Spanish in here. So this notice of meeting will be sent in Spanish to this parent. And then if you notice, we also have the tutorial in Spanish. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and send it in English. And then basically all you're going to do is click on send. If you click on send, it's going to send an email from SIRAS to the parent. Okay. Sometimes parents, I don't know what type of emails they have set up, but I can guarantee we have tons of clients, but the majority of them will get the email. Sometimes it'll go to spam, so they need to check their spam because they have some firewall blocker or something on their emails, because I'll show you what the email looks like coming from SIRAS. And so they may not really notice, they may be looking for something else. So I'm going to go ahead and click on send email. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like when I get that message here. All right. So this is the message that's going to be sent to the parent. If you notice who it's coming from, no reply 3. Okay, we have no reply 2, no reply 1. This is why sometimes it'll get blocked. This is why it gets blocked from your guys's, when you guys send it sometimes between your school, in your school emails to another teacher, you need to whitelist our domain. And so if teachers aren't getting it or you're getting it back from teacher to teacher, then you may need to have your IT whitelist our domain so that it can go through. We can't really do that with parents, so we do the best we can to get it through to the parents. Sometimes it goes to their spam. Sometimes they just see no reply 3 and they're like, they just ignore it. But this is what it looks like. What the parent does is they click on this link here, and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to open this up and show you what it looks like. And so when the parent clicks on the link, it basically opens up this form. If you notice, they can't click on any of this stuff in here, but if they keep scrolling down, you can see under parent response, they can click all the information that they need to click. And then it highlights where they need to sign. So they just click on this box. They can use their mouse or their finger if it's a touch screen or whatever to sign, and they just click on sign. Now the parent has their signature in there. All right. If they don't like it, they can clear it. They can do whatever they need to do. And then they don't even really need to save. It's saved. They can just click out of here and close it. Okay. And then back on our end in SIRAS, if you notice here, I'm just going to go straight to the notice of meeting. And I see, if I scroll down, that the parent had already signed. And it shows right up on the form for you guys. So that was a big thing. That's basically what the parent view is when they see it. It's very hard to kind of troubleshoot that on our end because we don't know what type of settings the parent has. There's no way to tell them to really change it, or, you know, it's a little difficult. So if you have a parent that is not getting an email and they're saying, nope, I haven't received anything, you can resend the email to them. So if you click on manage links again, on this one, the notice of meeting, or maybe it's the consent form or something like that. Notice of meeting doesn't really make too much sense. But if you need to send it like the consent form to another parent, you do not click edit and resend and then change this information. You click on create and send new link. And that'll put a whole, you can put a whole nother name in here and send it to a whole nother parent. That way you can keep track of each one that you send. If you're going to send it to the same person, same email, everything, then you want to click edit resend. Okay. The only time you click create send new link is if you're going to send it to a new person. If you're sending it to the same person, you can click on edit resend in this one existing link here. So I'm going to click on edit resend, and I'm going to show you what you can do if a parent says, I'm just not getting it, you know, and you send it to them a million times and they're saying, I'm not getting it. What you need to do then is you always have the option in every single time you send a link, doesn't matter what form. Next to the send email, we have this copy to clipboard. So you need to figure out if you want to do it in English or Spanish, and then click on copy to clipboard. When I click on this, it doesn't really look like it does much. It just closes that window out, right? But what you need to do next is you need to go to your district email, compose an email, and you can compose it to the parent. You can send it to the parent. And then what you want to do is you're going to right click in the body of the email and then click on paste. And so it pastes that same exact message with the same link and everything into an email that's coming from you that you know that's going to reach the parent because maybe you've emailed them before. The good thing about this one is that if you have any other forms that you need to attach to send to the parent with this, you can always go up here and attach a file and do whatever you need to do, and they'll still get this link with attached forms and everything. So then you just send this to the parent. And then that would ensure that the parent would get that link because it's coming from your email, not a no reply 3 SIRAS email. Okay. So that's important. That's a big one for you guys to take away. This, when you go here, this copy to clipboard, this is a lot of majority of my calls when people have problems with signatures. They're saying the parent doesn't get it, or the gen ed teacher is not getting it. It may be because your gen ed teacher that at your district, your guys' emails aren't whitelisted on our domain. You can always copy to clipboard, copy from your email address and send it to the gen ed teacher. There should be no issue there. Okay. All right, let me look at the chat here. Was there any questions on that? Okay, so I have a question is, so when parents do not sign in consent, it would not start until they consent to the IEP. So yep, I'm gonna get to that about parents consenting and what signed consent and everything means. You may be implying about the implementation date. That's a little vague area because you don't normally go back and change implementation date back and forth and all this other stuff. But we'll get to that about when the parent consents or not. If there's a delayed consent, you can always change this date until that delayed consent. Let's say the parent wants to take 3 weeks to consider it. You can always delay the implementation of that IEP here until that parent says they're going to agree to it and wait for that signature. But yes. All right. So after you send out that notice of meeting and all the pre-meeting forms that you would need to, you click on the basic IEP forms, and then you just start going through and filling out this information. You just start opening up the forms. The one thing I want to show you here on the demographic forms is this is a big one as well. You have your behavior intervention plans here. They're optional because the student doesn't have a behavior plan. But if you go to the demographic form, I'm hoping this works and they fixed it because last time in the training it wasn't. Do you see the questions where it says student exhibits behavior that requires a behavior intervention plan? If you check yes, you're saying that the student requires a behavior intervention plan. Fingers crossed. Yep, there we go. So now the behavior intervention plan is set to required. So I get a lot of questions as, why does a student have a required behavior intervention plan? The students never had a behavior intervention plan before. That's because when you went to the demographics, I think a lot of people read this statement wrong, or I don't know what it is about the statement, but I get it a lot. But if you check no, that means the student does not require one. And so when you save it, it makes it optional. Okay. So when you say yes, it's making it required. So if you ever have one that says yes, it's required, that's most likely because you've checked yes on here. All right, you guys should know about the eligibility, the present levels, the annual goals. What time is it? We started when I have till 3, right? All right. I want to go over the annual goals real quick and the goals developer. So when you're creating an IEP, there's kind of 3 ways you can create goals in our system. You can actually click on the form, and then you can fill this out. There's the area. The skill is optional. You can do the baseline, basically how the student performs now. Student does not read good. Let's say the annual goal is the student will read gooder. All right. You guys can link it to a standard if you'd like. You guys can put the discipline. I know you guys think I'm a really good goal writer, so I charge $500 an hour if you guys want to kind of recruit me, and I can do another training for you guys, but that's all I got right here. But what I'm saying is this, you guys can write your own goals. Hopefully it's better than mine. If you notice the first goal, you write, I can't click on these to do anything for the second goal. To have access to this, you have to click on add goal, and you click OK, and then now you can type in this area here. Okay. And then once you're done with the goals, you can do add goal as many times as you want. So if you do add goal again, it makes you have 2 pages now. And then this goal is blank as well. So, all right, once you're done, you click on save and return. So you can create your goals and do your goals on the form itself. I really don't recommend doing it this way. You can, but there's some benefits to doing it another way. So I don't recommend this at all. There's a way to write your own goals if you want to write it, but I suggest you do it another way, and I'll show you why. We suggest that you go to the goals developer. So if I click on go to goals developer, it'll take me to the goals developer. You can also at any time go to student info goals developer, and it takes you to the same place. All right, in the goals developer, it shows you the goals that you created. And if you notice, I created those 2 goals, but they're blank. The only way to delete a goal, you cannot delete a goal when you open up the form. You can delete all the text of the goal, but you can't delete a goal. The only way you can delete a goal is in the goals developer. And then you actually have to, the only one that can delete the goal, you see where it says created by? The only one that can delete it is the person that created it, or SIRAS admin user. And all you do, there's a link here, you click delete, it says, are you sure? Go okay. And then I'm going to delete this one as well. Say okay. And then that's how you delete your goals. All right. So if you want to create your own goal, don't do it on the form itself. Come here to the goals developer and click on create new blank goal. This is the same process. It has your baseline, it has your goal, it has the area of need, responsible discipline. But the one thing it doesn't have on the form that it has here is associated service. All right, so this will list all the services that the student has. All right, what you're doing on this is you're tying the goal that you're writing to the particular service. And if you guys utilize our service logs, if you guys log your services in SIRAS, when you log that service and the time that you did that service, you can actually choose a goal that you worked on that day if you'd like. So the only way to do that is to associate the goal to that service. So let's say I'm going to do specialized academic instruction. The area of need is math, responsible discipline. You can do, and again, these are actually, you can actually type in them as well. So if you have gen ed teacher, you can do and sped teacher. So you can write in these as well. If I spell teacher right. All right. So then you write your baseline. Student will add, students cannot add numbers. Student will add numbers. All right. And then once you're done creating your goal, your baseline and your goal, you click save and close. All right, so you can still write your own goals, but there's a little more flexibility when you have that associated service. it actually can tie into your service logs. Okay. So that's to create new blank goal. The other one that we have is create a new goal with Goal Wizard. So we have some new things in this area as well. We actually have a pretty extensive behavior list. So basically what this goals developer does, this Goal Wizard, is it's basically a series of drop downs that you guys can choose from. And anything in SIRAS that you choose in a drop down is automatically translated into Spanish. So using this area will automatically translate your goal into Spanish for you. But it also gives you the ability to create like a legally defendable goal in here that has all the criteria you need to have that that goal. So it gives you the setting and condition, then it gives you the behavior, and then it gives you the accuracy criteria, consistency, mastery, and the measurement instrument that you need to write a goal. That should be in every single goal that you do. So to do this, basically you just start filling out the information. The target date automatically defaults to a year from the meeting date, because that's how long the student's given to complete that goal, is a year, this annual contract. All right, so you choose your setting. If I choose global setting, it's going to give me things like in the classroom setting, in the gen ed class, in the resource room, it's going to give you like more, I guess, settings. Yeah, global settings. I don't know how else to put it, sorry. If you choose something like reading, it changes this drop down. It gives you like given core curriculum materials, a graphic organizer, things that relate more to like the academic reading setting. Okay, so these drop downs are dynamic. So you just choose a setting and condition, and then next you have these behaviors. So we have over 33,000 behaviors in our system. Obviously, you're not gonna look through every single one of them. So what we do is we have these filters up top here. Before I go over the filters, if you're looking at the behaviors now, some have a white background, some have the purple background. The difference between those is we have this domain called CCSS. This is the Common Core State Standards, right? The Common Core State Standards for ELA. The ones that are in white background, these are the goal stems, or kind of like the scaffolding that lead up to the actual goal. So this is the actual Common Core State Standard in lavender. So if you can see, follow words from left to right, top to bottom, and page by page is the standard. Then you have these goal stems. Point to the front and back of the book and show where the story begins. Follow the words left to right, top to bottom, page to page, with finger on the page. And so it kind of scaffolds them into the actual Common Core Standard. The good thing about this is that if the student does not, if you don't think the student can actually meet the grade level standard on a particular goal, you can actually utilize one of these goal stems so the student is still working towards a grade level Common Core State Standard for the goal, but it's more or less the scaffolding of it, so that it's not the complete goal, but you're working towards it. So that's always a good idea, to have a grade level behavior that the student is working towards if you're going for the Common Core State Standards. All right, so we have the CCSS, Common Core State Standards. That is aligned to the Smarter Balanced Assessment. That is the state test, the Smarter Balanced. The next one we have are called the CCCs, and these are the new ones. These are the Common Core Connectors. The Common Core Connectors, they are aligned to the CA, or the California Alternate Assessment. So you have the CCSS, Common Core State Standards, relates to the Smarter Balanced. And if the student is taking the California Alternate, then you can actually choose the Common Core Connector that they can work towards, rather than giving them a Smarter Balanced one. The good thing, or the cool thing about this, is when you choose the CCC, if I scroll down here, you still have the ones in white background, that lead up to the lavender one, which is the Common Core State Standard. But the one right before is the Common Core Connector. That's the one that's aligned to the California Alt. The cool thing about this one here is we have in this where it says assessments. If you click on these assessments, it'll actually have you download, and you can open up. It's the element card for that Common Core Connector. And so here's the element card. It tells you it's math geometry. It gives you the Common Core State Standard that it's related to. There's the Common Core Connector, the strand of geometry, the family, the progress indicators. Then you have essential understanding, concrete understanding, representation. It has your suggested instructional strategies. I'm sure you guys may have seen the element cards for the CCCs. Most people have to go to a different website to get these, but we've incorporated it into actually the goals when you are creating goals in our system and using the CCCs in our goals. All right, so that's kind of a cool feature in here. And then we also have the ELD standards for your students that are EL. When you choose these, you have your test correlation, you have emerging, there's expanding, and then there's bridging. You have merging, expanding, and bridging. So it'll tell you whether it's emerging, expanding, or bridging. It also tells you the Common Core State Standard, if there's one that's aligned to the ELD standard, so they can align those ELD standards to the Common Core State Standard as well. We have our speech and language. We have OT behaviors for OTs. There's motor skills, preschool DRDP, community access, recreation, leisure, deaf, hard of hearing, vision and health and nursing, and social and emotional. So you guys, there's a ton of things that you can filter through. So you can pick one. And then the next category you have is you can do the craft and structuring and all that. That's the next category from the Common Core State Standards. Or you can look at grade. I think my student was like in 11th or 12th grade. So I can do 11th or 12th grade standards. Once you find the standard that you want, you just click on the little hand and that will add the behavior that you want. But going through here, and if you're looking at all these standards and everything like that, if you find one of these behaviors that you like and you want to go back and maybe use this behavior on another student, we have this add to favorites. So if you add a favorite, any of these, to find your favorites, you can check this little box here and it'll only list the ones that you have favorited. And you can even use these little filters to filter through your favorites as long as you have that checked there. Right. There's also a way to build your custom behaviors in here. If you want to build a custom behavior, at the very bottom, you can click create custom behavior. If you're interested in that, you need to make sure, if you don't know the Spanish, don't do the Spanish, but make sure that you realize these are actual behaviors. And if you're going to create your own, make sure to model it like our behaviors that are in here, because you got to think that it's going to be in the middle of a sentence. So if you're going to create your own, don't do the behavior with the capital at the front and a period at the end. So if you create your own, just make sure it kind of, you realize that it's going to be going into the middle of a sentence, so you don't have to edit it later on. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of these behaviors. Mine might not make much sense, but I'm just going to show you the process to do it here. So once you choose your behavior, it starts building that sentence, your baseline and your goal up here. And then you're going to select your accuracy. So let's say for the goal, where you want the student to be at the end of the year. Let's say I want them to be 80% correct for so many consecutive trials. And then the measurement instrument I'm going to use is, let's say it's going to be a teacher-made test. You fill in this consecutive trials a little later. I'll show you when you do that. But you can line your baseline kind of the same. Let's say, given this behavior right now, what can the student currently do? Let's say they can currently do 40%. and you can do the same for so many consecutive trials. Once you're done, you click on assemble goal. Once you're in this assemble goal, you're in the edit goal area. This is where you add your consecutive trials. So I can say I'm going to do 2 consecutive trials here. And for the goal, I'm going to say, let's do 3. Right. You can add the associated service up here, and then you do the responsible discipline here. And then before you click on save and close, what you can do, since you had, like I said, everything in SIRAS that you choose in a dropdown will automatically translate to Spanish. But if you notice, I typed the numbers. So help your translators out and help yourself out if you ever want to have like the Spanish version as much as you can to print out. Click on Spanish up here, and then I'm pretty accurate. I'm almost at 100% that I've been able to translate these. But if you put your 2 and your 3 there, you basically translated your own goal here. And so that's all done now. So your Spanish goal is complete, your English goal is complete, and then you can click on save and close. And so now you have your goal in the in your goal developer. And I just want to show you have your Spanish up here. These did not translate to Spanish, obviously, because remember I typed them, but this one actually did. Okay. All right. So that is our goals developer. So you guys can go and once you're done with the goals, you just open up the goals. There are some things for if they're an ELD student, you have to fill out. But anything you didn't fill out there, you can go and click on save and return, and then your goals should be complete. Let's see. The next one's here. Let's just remind you all, for special education related services, there's a difference between exiting a student and dismissing them from a service. You can dismiss a student from a service as long as you have an evaluation to do that. So this student has specialized academic instruction for, and then he also has APE. So if you want to dismiss a student from, say, APE, you can evaluate the student during an annual. That's fine. You don't need a triennial to do it. You can evaluate the student from an annual to dismiss them from a service. You just have to have the evaluation to back it up. The way you dismiss them from a service is you click this little X and it takes it away. All right. And that's how you dismiss them from a service. Now, you should not be dismissing a student from every single service on this page. That is exiting the student. That's the difference. You need to do that through a triennial reevaluation. Okay, and that's a different process. So once you're done with that, you can click on save and return. All right. The next one that I want to go over is, remind me, Jennifer, your emergency conditions provisions, is that required on your guys' live?
It was, but
okay, I'm pretty sure it is. Everybody's changing it to required now. You guys make sure that you fill out your emergency conditions and provisions form. This isn't for students that are going, say, like on quarantine or something like that. That's a whole different process, is what I'm learning. This emergency conditions provisions is for like a major kind of catastrophe, like if California had an earthquake and students had to stay home, or Northern California has a ton of fires, and if those students had to stay home, and it's for more than 10 days of instruction, that's when these emergency condition provisions come into play. Like it was for the pandemic for COVID. If we ever go back on that and we have to go to distance learning or whatever they call it now, you would use this form for that. So make sure that that is in place for your students. And that should be come up for your annual, triennial, or initial as required. If you need it during an amendment or anything like that, it should show up as optional and you guys can still utilize that form. All right. The next thing that I want to show you is how to continue a meeting. This has been coming up quite a bit, and I don't think there's been too many trainings on it. It is a little bit rather new, the way that we're doing it, the way you continue a meeting. I'm going to switch to another student real quick here. Who was I on? My student Duran. Yeah, see his student ID is Hungry Wolf. I have a weird sense of humor, I'm sorry. But let's say that you're going to hold the meeting, all right? Or let's say you've actually held the meeting already previously. And let's say today is 8/17 and you hold the meeting with the parent, but you did not get through the entire IEP. All right, you've only gotten to annual goals because the parent just wants to look over everything. It's already been 3 hours and you're like, look, we've only gone over 4 forms and it's been 3 hours. We need to continue this to another day. The way you continue a meeting is you do not check meeting held. All right, so you only check meeting held when the meeting is actually fully complete. It's completely been held. You're not going to meet again. All right. If you do accidentally click on meeting held, it gives you the option here. If the meeting will be continued, please do not indicate meeting held. You have this little add continuation date right here. All right. You can click on it here, that's fine. But the way that I want you to get used to it is don't click meeting held. You can add meeting continuation date right here. So if you click on add meeting continuation, it automatically pops in a day for you. It gives you like 1 week from the meeting date. That can change. You guys, I really urge you while you have the parent at the meeting on that day to set a continuation date. It should not be like 3 months from now. You guys should try to get it done within a week, maybe no later 2 weeks to continue. So you guys put in the meeting continuation date. Let's say we're going to continue it on Friday. You can put in whatever time you're going to continue it. And then any scheduling notes. You can put went over, or you can say left off at goals or something like that. I don't know, whatever you want to utilize these scheduling notes for. And then you click on save. All right, and it keeps track of the meeting continuations here. All right, so now you added the meeting continuation date. All right, it's going to be for the 20th. The next thing that you want to do is you're going to go to the pre-meeting forms. Right, you've already sent the notice of meeting to the parent. Now you need to send the notice of meeting continued. All right, so when you open up this form, the big thing about this form and the big difference is that it has the date 8/20/2021. That's the new meeting date at 12 p.m. You can put an end time. It's going to be virtual, but it has this here. This is a continuation meeting begun on 8/17. Right? So then you fill it out and you click on save and return. Now you can send that manage links to the parent for them to sign that they got a notice meeting continued. All right. The other thing that you're going to do for this meeting is you're not going to send them the consent form because you haven't finished the meeting, so they're not going to consent to anything. But the meeting participation form, everybody fills out the meeting participation form, even the provider. So the provider, if you have access to the student, you can just open up the form and sign yourself. All right, and it'll sign. You send the meeting participation form to the parent, they will sign here. All right. And then you can just click on save and return. All right, so now you have the meeting participation form. You've sent that the notice of meeting continued. Now it's 8/20. It's the day of the meeting, right? The parent comes to the meeting. You want them to sign the participation form. You open up the participation form. they've already signed this area, right? Because they met on 8/17. So if you add page meeting continuation, if you notice, it gives you a second page now. Look at what the second page has. 8/17 is the original date, continuation meeting 8/20. And look, my signature is no longer there, but it's still over here on the first page for the 8/17 one. So now I can actually sign for the participation on this one. The parents can sign they participated on this one as well. And then you can just save and return. All right. Now, just for fun, let's say you've only went through another 4 forms or something like that. You're still not done. You have to meet again. You can continue as many times as you'd like. Just click on add meeting continuation. You put in the continuation date. Maybe it's 8/27. You put in any notes, you click save, right? The next thing you're gonna do, you go to the pre-meeting forms. You go to that continuation meeting form again. I've already sent this one, right? It's the 8/21. Click on add page. If you notice now, the date changed to 8/27. You have the first one for the continuation that was 8/20. The second one is 8/27. Now you can save this form and send it to the parent, letting them know this is our second continuation meeting, and this is the notice I'm sending for that second one. Okay. And then you go to the meeting, you have the meeting, you have that meeting participation, right? You can add another page to the participation. And now if you notice page 3 is the 8/27 date, then you have the participation for the 8/20 date, and you have the participation for the 8/17 date, the original date. So you can keep track of all the meeting participations. You can keep track of all the notice of meetings that you've sent. And then once that meeting is finalized, or once that meeting has been agreed to, or you're done holding the meeting, everything's been talked about, then you check meeting held. But you have not gotten parent consent yet, right? Maybe it's a virtual meeting. You need to check meeting held because the meeting's over. It's not finalized yet, but the meeting is over. You're not going to meet again. You don't have signed consent, so you're awaiting consent right now. So you hit confirm. Did the parents participate? Yeah, they attended. That's great. Now you send the parent consent form to the parents. Okay, so you go to manage links, right? You send that consent form. The only one you can send it to is the parent here. All right, and I'm going to send it to myself, Michael, at SIRASSystems.com, and you create the new link. All right, you can send that link to the parent. They sign it, everything's good. They say they consent, everything's fine. The next thing you do is you change that to accepts the plan, signed consent. Okay, that is if they consent. You don't change it until they consent. You need signed consent. It doesn't matter if they say in the meeting, this is the best IEP ever, I love it, I agree with it. Until you get their signature, you don't say signed consent. What this does is, if you look at the MIS summary page, when I checked meeting held, it updated the dates of the IEP when I checked meeting held, but it didn't update any of the services, the new services. These are still old dates. Okay. So if I check accepts the plan, it's going to change and put everything that I had on the forms. It's going to update the MIS summary page. All right. And you can only click on accepts plan once. So when I do accepts the plan, it's going to change it. If I do it by accident, then I'm going to have to get my admin to go and change everything back. Okay. Does not accept the plan. I can click on that and it does not update anything on the MIS summary page except for the IEP meeting dates. Does not accept the plan means that the parent, when they opened up the consent form, they signed it and said, I do not agree with this IEP. I don't accept it. Okay, that is does not accept the plan. They signed that they do not agree. And you can finalize this meeting as does not accept the plan. Okay. So if you ever want to go back and discuss the annual review, because you still need to have an annual in place that the parent agrees to. If you finalize the meeting as does not accept the plan, you cannot create an amendment after that. You actually have to open up the same meeting that you had. If it was an annual that the parents didn't agree to, you open up another annual. If it was a triennial that the parent didn't agree to, you open up another triennial. The reason being is if they do not accept the plan, this is not their current IEP. So if you have a finalized IEP of does not accept the plan, that is not their current IEP because that's not the one being implemented. The one being implemented is the one you held before that. And if you open up an amendment, you're amending that meeting, the last one the parent agreed to. So you have to open up that same type of meeting to establish that annual or triennial or whatever it is. Okay. All right, the next one I'll go partial consent. Partial consent is still consent. The parent still consented to the IEP. It's just they only consented.
Can I just ask a question for clarification? Yeah. So if you have a parent not accept the plan, and I just want to make sure I understand, if you are then going to hold another either triennial evaluation meeting, are you reactivating the meeting and revising the offer of FAPE, or are you creating a whole separate meeting? You're creating a whole separate meeting. Okay. That way it shows exactly, because if you reactivate that meeting, then you're going to lose that meeting that the parent declined. It's you're no longer going to have that meeting anymore. So you need to open up another meeting so that it's an actual reflection of what actually happened to the student record. That's what a lot of people do, is they reactivate meetings that parents maybe didn't agree to, or they need to make some sort of change, but then you lose that original meeting and you lose everything there. So this would give you an actual reflection of what happened to the record when you open up that new meeting. Okay, so the one not accepted is just archived as accepted. Okay, thank you. It archives, it archives all the forms and what you offered them, and it shows that the parent signed that they did not consent. Then you just open up an entire new meeting of that same one. And then, then you'll have that there. So, all right, I got a question. How do you close or finalize this? Okay, if it does not accept the plan or partial consent, if it does not accept the plan, you just click on finalize and it finalizes the meeting. If it's partial consent, you can just click on finalize, but you need to contact your SIRAS admin who has SIRAS admin access. And what they need to do is they need to go to the MIS summary page, and they would need to update what the parent agreed to and what they did not agree to. They would leave what they didn't agree to alone. They leave it as is, because you still have to implement whatever they last agreed upon. But any changes that they actually agreed on, they would need to manually go into my summary page and update it. Partial consent agree to goal. When you click on accepts the plan or partial consent agree to goals, it'll actually move the goals in the goals developer. It'll move the goals in development over to current and the current goals over into archive. So that's what accepts the plan does. Does not accept the plan does not move the goals into current because they didn't agree to those goals. Partial consent will not move those goals to current because they didn't agree to those goals. Partial consent agree to goals, you would think, what does that do? Same thing as partial consent. You still need the admin to update the MIS summary page to what the parents agreed to. But agree to goals means that those goals that are in development will move to current and the current ones will move to archive. And then we put this in here, the parent contacted no response. That just updates the dates of the IEP. It doesn't make any changes. What this is let's say you sent out the consent form and you sent it out multiple times to the parent and they're like, yeah, I'll sign it, I'll sign it, I'll sign it. And then they never sign it. So that they don't agree. They're not saying they agree, but they're not saying they disagree. They're just ignoring you. You can't have that go on for that long.
And so you should have like maybe some sort of timeline within your district, like maybe after 2 weeks of trying to get a hold of the parent with the electronic signature, maybe you send a copy of the consent form home to get it signed, and have a date to where they return it. But you need to report these to CalPads in a timely manner. So if you did not get any sort of signed consent or anything back, it's parent contacted, no response, and you can finalize this meeting. And then once you do get a response, you can actually change that to whatever you need to change it to. But once you finalize the meeting, so I'm going to finalize this meeting. Once I finalize this meeting, I say parent contacted, no response. The links request no longer work. So the parent cannot do it the easy way anymore. They cannot sign the link. You actually have to have the parent come down to the district or the school or something to sign in person, and you can always scan it and you can upload it to this here. Okay. All right. Any questions on finalizing meetings? Once you get this back, then you can change it to accepts the plan. And if they signed consent, then they accepts the plan, everything's good to go now. All right. Any questions on that? You guys okay on the finalizing process and all of that? Okay. Another thing that I want to show you guys is, as a provider, I want to look for my inactive students. This has come up a lot lately, is students that have been exited from special education, and they are being they are being evaluated again. So if a student has been exited from special education, they have that little gray area here. If you need to evaluate them again for special ed to determine eligibility, you do not do anything to their inactive status. All right, you leave this alone. A lot of people want to click on this, or the admins want to click on this, change it to pending, and do all this other stuff. As an admin, all you need to do is go to the MIS summary page. You need to add providers. And if you see, I'm added as a provider here. Once the provider is added to the student record, then the provider just needs to go up to their list, and they need to look at their inactive students, and they can search for their inactive student. And then all they would have to do is go to the IEP manager, create a new meeting, and then create an initial evaluation. So they have the initial here, they create a new meeting. It says, this student was previously exited in special education, from special education. This is where people stop. And they're like, I can't do anything. It's not letting me create an initial evaluation. And I think the providers see this and they stop because they see the red up here. And then they talk to their admins. And then I think this is when the admin goes over here and says, well, let's make them pending. So just know that this is just telling you that the student was previously exited. That's just a statement, and it's true. If you notice, they have this button down here that says reset referral data and begin new initial evaluation. If you click this, it says, are you sure you want to clear the referral data and create a new evaluation? Yes, I do. So you click on OK. Once you do that, the initial evaluation is here. Okay. So that's one of the big misconceptions of SIRAS for students that are inactive, that need to be need to hold another initial evaluation, is that you go in and make the student pending, because you make the student pending if they're having an initial evaluation, but you leave them inactive, you just create the meeting. What SIRAS does to that student now, if you notice, this student that I created the initial evaluation for, it automatically changed that to pending and made the yellow background. All right, and then you fill out the information on the initial evaluation, and then that determines on whether the student is eligible or not eligible. If the student's eligible, the system will automatically change the student to active. If the student's not eligible, the system will automatically change the student to inactive. Okay, there's nothing you need to do on your end. One of the new features that we have for initial evaluations, let's say you put the referral date in, the assessment plan was sent, and it was referred by the teacher, the assessment plan was received. All right. So let's say that you want to refer the student to get an initial evaluation done and assess the student for eligibility. If the parent denies for an initial evaluation, if the parent says, we're not going to give you permission to assess, then you click on no. If they do say, give me permission to assess, you can click on yes, then continue your assessment. If they say no, we have this new button here now for initial evaluations. It says close meeting and inactivate record. So this is an easy way for you to do this. You haven't filled out any forms. The parent just said, no, I don't want to assess the student. There's nothing more you can do. So we just created this button here. If you click on it, and it says you're indicating the parent denied permission to assess the student. This will cancel the meeting and mark the student as inactive. Are you sure? All right, that's all we can do is put these little warnings in there for you. If you say you're sure, click OK. And if you look now, okay. So this function is currently only allowed for admin level users only. I'm not an admin level user, so I can't do this, but this is what an admin can do. You can, as a general user, you can go as far as no, and then click on close meeting and inactivate record. Man, I don't see why a general user wouldn't be able to do that. I might have to think about that one and see if we can let general users do that. I would hate for the admin just to have it come on here and click a button. But it's something easy you can do. I'll see if I can change that. If you guys, we'll talk to Jennifer. I'll talk to you later. See if there's any objections or anything like that that you would have.
Michael, you have a question here. Would this still produce the record of the signed assessment plan, or is it going to erase all of the records?
No, if you filled out the pre-meeting forms and you sent out the notice of referral, you sent out the PWN assessment plan and the notice of meeting, and you sent it out electronically, or even however you got it, if you open up the form and saved it, it'll still save the PWN assessment plan that you saved in here. It'll still have the parent's signature electronically. If you sent that out electronically, it'll still have everything in here saved. It's not going to delete anything. It's just basically going to archive this initial evaluation as abandoned, parent did not give permission to assess. But it's going to still show all the forms that were filled out and everything like that. And it'll still have parent signature, everything. This is just more of a convenient button that you can check. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it'll still have everything there for you. All right. Let's see what else I have here for you all. Continue meeting, closing, parent declines, meeting types, sending links. All right. So let me show you one. Let me show you some things about sending the links here and for the parents. So we already have one link here for the notice of meeting. I am actually going to remove that signature real quick. And then let's just say we opened up a PWN assessment plan. And then I'm going to and I'm going to create a new link right here. And I'm going to send an email. You guys can send, you guys would have to create a link right now. We're working on this, kind of a work in progress with this sending links. So right now you have to send a link to the parent every single time for every single form. We're trying to get it to where you can check which forms you want to send a link for and it do it all at once. That's up and coming. Well, now I told you, I really hope it's up and coming because hopefully it can work, but that's what we're working on. So we'll be able to send that, but for now you have to send it for every single one that you want to send to the parent or whoever. But once the parent gets that link, let me see here. All right. So this is the PWN assessment plan. I'm going to copy the link here and paste and go. All right. So you can see here, this is the assessment plan, prior written notice. It has all the fields here. For the parent to sign, they sign on this one here. They click here and they can sign. All right, and they just click sign, all that there. Now, what they can do here is instead of going back and looking at, and this is another way, this is something else that we're really trying to work on. But for now, if you can try to explain to the parents that they don't need to go back and click on that other link, they can actually go up here in this drop down and they can see all the forms just by clicking one link. They can see all of the forms that they have that they need a signature for. So this one was already checked because I just signed it. Now I can go to the notice of meeting and all I have to do is click on that little green arrow to save and return. And now it takes me to the notice of meeting and I can sign that one. And so it'll have a list of all of the forms that you've sent a link for. They just have to click on one of the links and they can come in this drop down and see all of them. Okay, and they can go through and sign. We're also trying to make that a little more user friendly. I know it's kind of hard to train parents sometimes to click on this. Some of them are tech savvy, but eventually down the road, we're going to have it to where the parent will just have a list of all their signatures and they'll just have to, they can just scroll down and just sign every single one that they need without changing to different forms like this. It might just be one big scroll thing that they can go through. But that's what we're working on later on. For now, this is what we have so that parents don't have to go and click on every single link. They have this drop down here. And they can go back and forth between whatever forms that they need. And however many that you send a link for, however many will show up in this drop down. Okay. And then once they're done, they can just close. And then you'll see here on the assessment plan, on page 2, it's signed. And then on the notice of meeting as well, it is signed here. All right. So any questions on kind of what I went over or anything else that you guys want? We have about 15 minutes left. I want to leave some time so that you guys can send me questions or take yourself off mute and ask me questions on anything I went over or anything that you have that you want to know that I didn't go over in SIRAS for you. All right, guys, not all at once. It's pretty overwhelming. No questions? You guys are...
I have a question. I'm new to the admin side. I just stepped up from being a general user as a teacher. And so I feel like a big learning curve for me is that admin side and like the interaction with CalPads. Can you, Michael, direct me to any good like resources or like ongoing opportunities for me to, grow my knowledge in that area so that I can support our staff and also be in compliance?
Yeah. So SIRAS has a Padlet here. It's padlet.com/SIRAS/SIRAS for CalPads. It has a ton of information on here. One of the bigger ones that you would like to look at is we have these index cards, but we have these CalPADS error summary. So this is one of the first ones. If you have an error or something in CalPADS, you can look at this form. You can see there's the CERT 142 errors. It gives you the description and the notes, and it tells you if there's any resolutions. And then it has your fatal warnings, and then it also has your the warnings for SPET, or your fatal errors, and then your warnings. So that's one of the ones that you would want to look at. But this whole thank you, Jennifer, for putting that in the chat. This whole document here has a ton of information. If you scroll over, we have these upcoming Zoominars that you guys can go to, that Brian puts on. And let's see, there's SIS integration, Zoominar schedule links, Zoominar workshop agendas, and then we have our other Padlets. So there's the learning for CalPADS, and then we have our SIRAS for admins. So this is another link, SIRAS for admins. It has information as help using SIRAS. So before the rollover, after rollover, we just got done with rollover for the beginning of the school year. Information on batch edits, finding out of district archive records. Then there's data entry. Here's data monitoring procedures, help with new IEP referrals. There's just a ton of information as well on this Padlet as well. And then we have the learning for CalPADS. The learning for CalPADS is another one. These are training slides, private school enrollment, NPS. Like I said, they're just filled with information here. So once you have access to the one, you can always click on the other links to go to the others as well.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I think Brian is going to be having a training as well here pretty soon that will go over like the CalPADS part of it. And so you may want to look into going to that training for that.
Michael, you have a couple questions. One of the questions, how do you remove students? Armando, I think that was your question. Remove students that are no longer enrolled at the district.
Okay. So to remove a student that's no longer enrolled at the district, that would be at an admin level. Let me log into our demo server here. Sorry, the demo server is a little bit slower, but our demo server it's all fake data. Again, as well, it's just all fake data. Our test server is not fake data, but I created fake student accounts that I put in there so that it would show fake data. But this, yeah, our demo server is a little bit larger here. But to remove a student from your district, you actually cannot really delete them. So if a student no longer is at your district, you would click on that student and go to their student record. And depending on what happened with the student, if they just moved to another district, then all you would need to do is first, if they had an open IEP, you would need to finalize that IEP. Let me show you how to do that real quick. Let me find one with an open IEP. All right, so this student here has an open triennial. So this would be a good example if a student has a triennial and it's open already in the system, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the triennial, they just left your district. There's a difference between exiting a student from special ed and just a student leaving your district and going on. So before you can make this student inactive, you would actually have to finalize the meeting. For an admin to force finalize a meeting, you can't finalize a meeting because there's no finalize button right here, and you don't have any of all the required forms done. It's just in the middle of the meeting. You don't want to delete this meeting because you did work on it, and you want to show that you want to keep the work that you've done. It'll put an archive in there, show that you opened it, you started with the IEP and started doing the triennial, but then the student just left. This also gives the other district the ability to go and look back at the abandoned meeting and see what you did and kind of get an idea of where you guys were going with that student. So the way you finalize this meeting is an admin has this ability to click on this little black arrow next to preview print, and you disable validations for preview finalize. What that means is these are validations saying that they're required. You're going to disable those to where you can finalize it without having to do the required forms. So then once you disable the validations, you click finalize, and then you can say that the abandoned meeting that the student just left, and then you click on finalize. And now that archives the meeting and it shows all the forms that you've already, it saves all the forms you opened and saved. Now, once that meeting is finalized, you can go to the student where it says active, you make the student inactive, and then if they're exiting your district, you can put exited, and you put in the last day that they actually received services. So the last day they received services was maybe it was Friday, and I just got around here on Tuesday to do it. So the last day that they received services was Friday, and then the reason why they exited is moved, known to be continuing. So that's the one that you use. That's kind of a catch-all for a lot of the ones, but if the student exited from your district and they didn't return to gen ed, they just moved to another district and you know they're going to continue, even if you don't know that they're going to continue services, sometimes you don't know that they're going to continue. They just got up and left. You're like, what's going on? You still would use moved, known to be continuing, even if you don't know they're continuing or not. Okay, because none of the other options would fit. They didn't return to gen ed. They didn't graduate. They didn't reach maximum age. They didn't drop out. You don't know if they did or not. Moved, known to be continued is the catch-all. All right, and then you just click on save, and that made the student inactive. And then now that student can't be deleted from your district. They're always going to be there as inactive unless another district requests that student record. And then as an admin on the homepage, if they request a record, you have your transfers right here. You would check your homepage. If you're an admin, you want to check your homepage. I would hopefully say at least, maybe every morning or afternoon, or at least once a day, maybe once a week at the latest. But go to your transfers, and then if another district is looking for that record and they ask for that record to be sent to their district, you'll see it here, and then all you have to do is click on send, and then it sends that record over. And then you no longer have access to the current record, but you can always search for the archive record that you sent to CalPATS. All right. So that's how you move. Where are the archived, or where are the archives or placed, especially if their files have not yet been requested by the new district. I don't quite understand, Armando, that where are the archives or placed?
I think you just answered that question.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
So what I understand is once they're made inactive, then they go into this transfer folder. Is that correct?
Well, they don't go into the transfer folder unless another district requests that transfer.
Okay.
They just stay inactive in your district, and then basically you're just waiting for the district to request a transfer for that student, and then you can just send them. As soon as you send them, then they're gone from your district, but they'll never leave unless another district requests them.
Okay, so they'll just stay there, like they'll be hidden there somewhere. They won't be on anybody's case, but then once they're requested, then they'll pop up.
They'll stay there under the inactive records here.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Where are the archive? Okay. What do you do if a student went on an ISP and have now returned to the district and need an IEP? Okay, this is actually a big one. So if it's to put a student on an ISP, so to put a student on an ISP plan, what you need to do is you need to hold an annual review, or if the triennials do whatever is due at the time, or if it's nothing's due and they're just saying, I want to go on the ISP, you have to open up an annual review. Okay. You actually have to give them an offer of FAPE. So you fill out the meeting forms, you fill out the basic IEP forms, right? And then if they decline your offer, then you click on the ISP forms. All right, and if they want an ISP, then all you need to do is open up the ISP forms. Once you open up the ISP form and save it, if you notice, it automatically changed that student to an ISP. So if you look at the MIS summary page, it changed the plan type to ISP. Okay, if you did that by accident, by opening up a form, a lot of people do this, a lot of providers do this. They go to the ISP forms, they're like, oh, what's this? Oh, I wonder what this looks like. They open it, and rather than clicking cancel, they just click save and return. If they click cancel, it'll cancel out and nothing will save, and it'll keep the student as an IEP. But if they click on save and return, it'll change that student to an ISP. To change back, you just click on change to IEP. If you did it by accident, that's what you can do. But if they're on an ISP and they need to change back to an IEP, you need to hold another annual. So if this, let's say the student is on an ISP right now, right? Let me do something here. Access the plan, confirm, finalize. Okay, so now the student is on an ISP plan, current ISP. If they need to go back on an IEP, you need to create another meeting, do an annual review, create the meeting, and then you would actually fill out the basic IEP forms as an annual. But before you do that, you would change to an IEP. All right, and then it gives you the basic forms that you need for an annual. All right, and so you do another annual, you fill out those forms, and then the parent would accept the plan, and then they'll be on a plan type annual again, or a plan type IEP again. All right, but it needs to be an annual review. If again, they decline it for some reason, then you have to go back to the ISP forms, open up a form and do the ISP again, and then it'll change it back to an ISP. Hopefully that makes sense. The big thing is if they're switching from one to the other, it has to be an annual. It cannot be an amendment. That's a big thing, because if it's an amendment and you're changing them to an ISP during an amendment, when you send that to CalPads, you're going to come back with an error. I don't have my errors memorized like Brian does, because he deals with that more, but he can tell you what every single error is off the top of his head. I cannot, but you will get an error from CalPads if you do not send that ISP to annual, or to ISP to IEP, or IEP to ISP. It'll be an error if it's not an annual. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I know it's coming, actually just turned 3 o'clock right now. I can stay here and I don't know if you want to stop the recording. Some people don't like to ask questions on the recording, but we can stop the recording. If anybody else has questions, I can stay on here as long as you'd like, and I can help you guys out with anything you guys need.
So I want to thank you all for coming today, and you're welcome to stay on. I will try to stop our recording, and then we can freely ask questions if needed to Michael. Thank you, Michael, for the great tour today, and we wish you all a lovely week.
Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.